ERP purchases have a reputation for costing far more than expected. In this video, I'll show you 5 places where unplanned ERP costs are incurred so you can take steps to minimize or eliminate them. While we'll talk about ERP software, the same principles apply to any software purchase where millions of dollars will be spent. ERP systems are major investments that need tangible returns. That return takes the form of the software helping the company achieve its business goals. For example, if the goal was to reduce operating costs by 10% and the software achieved that, that is a measurable hard dollar ROI. In this chart, the costs of the new software and implementation are below the axis, while the return from the software is above the axis, and this dotted line represents the target value that the software is expected to return. ERP purchase planning starts with budgeting for the software and implementation costs in year 0. In this example, we planned the implementation to take about a year. Then from year 1 onwards, the software should return value, for example by reducing operating costs. When the project starts, at first things seem to go according to plan, but at the end of year 0 the implementation is only halfway done, and that means another year of implementation. It's very common for ERP implementations to take substantially longer than expected, and that brings us to the first cost of poor ERP purchasing, where the implementation cost is much more than budgeted. Then there is the second cost, namely delayed ROI. That is the hidden cost that nobody ever considers, but it is very real. If the ERP was supposed to deliver $3 million savings per year from reduced operating costs, and implementation took a year longer than planned, that is a $3 million saving that will not materialize. The third cost of poor ERP purchasing is business disruption when going live. For example, the products are in the warehouses, but software problems prevent them from being delivered to customers. The fourth cost of poor ERP purchasing is when the ERP doesn't properly meet the business requirements. This is another hidden cost that continues every year the software is used. For example, certain processes remain manual and on spreadsheets. The fifth and final cost of poor ERP purchasing is buying software that does not support future growth. In other words, the ERP system may need replacing after 5 years instead of delivering value for 10 to 20 years. The root cause of these problems is inadequate preparation for the ERP purchase. Let's add some substance to the picture by considering 2 scenarios with Acme to show where the costs of poor ERP purchasing will occur and how much they will cost. Acme's revenue is $250 million, and they want a new ERP system to save $15 million operating costs net over 5 years. Multiply these numbers up or down as appropriate for your situation. In scenario 1, Acme budgeted $1 million per year on cloud ERP, $2 million on implementation, and $300K for project fees to guide them through the software selection and implementation success management. Thus, their total cost over 5 years is $7.3 million. In scenario 2, Acme did a cursory software selection and then listened to an ERP reseller who said, "Why waste money on project fees? Use us and your implementation can start immediately. You will be live in production sooner." Everything is the same as scenario 1, except there are no project fees. Now let's see the effect the 5 costs of poor ERP purchasing will have on Acme in scenario 2. The first cost is the implementation taking longer than planned. During the implementation, Acme found significant new requirements that should have been found earlier. This is often called scope creep, but it is not. It is caused by inadequate business requirements analysis. Handling newly discovered requirements takes time and is the biggest cause of implementation delays. In this scenario, the implementation took twice as long as planned, so Acme had an extra $2 million in costs. For a real example of extended implementations, look at Montclair University, who spent more than double their budget and took 3 times longer than planned when implementing PeopleSoft ERP. The second cost is when the ROI is delayed because the implementation takes longer than planned. In this scenario, implementation delays caused Acme to miss the first year of ROI, which cost them $3 million. For an example, look at Cubic Corporation, who implemented an ERP system to cut operational costs by $16 million per year. This project took 2 years longer than expected and cost them at least $32 million in missing ROI. The third cost of poor ERP purchasing comes from business disruption when the new software goes live. When Acme went live, they discovered requirements that had not been addressed in the software, and these problems prevented them from delivering products to their customers. In our scenario, this business disruption cost Acme $13 million. Select Comfort experienced business disruption when rolling out a new ERP system. It cost them $83 million in revenue and $21 million in earnings. The fourth cost is that of unmet expectations. This happens when the wrong software is selected because significant business requirements were missed. It also happens if the software is misrepresented during the sale. For as long as the software is used, that missing functionality is handled outside the system. In our scenario, this cost Acme $2 million over 5 years. JB Hunt is an example of a Fortune 500 company buying software that didn't properly meet their needs. What they bought was such a poor match, they ended up wasting several years on fruitless litigation. The fifth and final cost of poor ERP purchasing is where the software reduces future revenue growth. While software might meet current functionality, there's not enough room to grow beyond that. In our scenario, we estimated this limited functionality trimmed 1% of Acme's future revenue growth over 5 years, which cost about $7 million. In this real-world example, Finish Line, an athletic apparel company, implemented new supply chain software. Instead of helping them grow, it caused them to close 150 of their 617 stores. Acme spent $7.3 million in Scenario 1 and $34 million in Scenario 2. When it comes to ERP, the devil is always in the details, and that is why the business requirements analysis is the most important step in the process. Think of the project fees in Scenario 1 as an insurance premium to avoid the unplanned costs that occurred in Scenario 2. Let's assume that both Scenario 1 and Scenario 2 achieved their goal of reducing operating costs by $3 million per year. However, note that Scenario 1 reached an investment break-even in 2.4 years, while Scenario 2 took 11.3 years. That is a 9-year difference. Let's conclude by saying the only aim of a new ERP is to meet expectations. For users, this means adequate functionality. The system is easy to use and it does what they need to get their work done. For management, this means the new ERP enables them to achieve current and future business goals. For investors, this means a company that can grow organically and through acquisition. In this video, you've seen how much it costs when an ERP purchase goes wrong. To find out more, go to wayfree.com or see the links below. Thanks for watching, and please share this video with colleagues who've outgrown their current ERP systems.